We are a generation that parties and prays. We have our bad manners, but we also know our Lord. This is a post I have seen posted on WhatsApp and Twitter by friends and strangers alike. It is true that there has been mind-blowing, and with it, religious practices are not as widely accepted and implemented as they used to be. It is starting to become a thing of the past. Now, it is understandable that today we struggle with the pressures of the 21st century and the dynamics they come along with. We have education, we have wealth to acquire, but at the same time, we have to be morally upright and spiritually know God. The first habit that we learn from the Prophet is acceptance of Islam. And Islam is defined as total submission to God. Now, the Prophet narrowed this down as accepting of God in his true nature, accepting that Prophet Muhammad is his messenger, and accepting fate, whether it is good or bad. However, accepting of Islam comes with the ability to identify and understand that whatever you are going through is the responsibility of God. The second habit is sincerity and intention. The Prophet lived his life intentionally. Whatever he did as good, he intended it and he was sincere about it. Now, we see that the scriptures tell us that God does not look to our faces, but looks at our deeds. The deeds of people, the actions define what their intentions are. The sincerity that comes with the act can only be defined by what someone is doing. So how about we emulate the life of the Prophet in such a way that we become sincere about what we are doing. We do things with honesty. The third practice is knowledge and practice. And this is because it is duty for Muslims to research and learn about things that an actual Muslim is supposed to know. This is why we hear and we have read that we must look for knowing and knowledge even if we have to find it in China. And the Quran tells us that the paths that people take, if you take paths of knowledge, one of those paths will lead you to paradise. So knowing and having knowledge means that much, and it is not a luxury, it is not a privilege, but a duty for Muslims. The fourth habit is the practice of worship. The practice of worship is not as narrow as it sounds like, because there we would have to look at praying the 5 times, at fasting, giving charity. But then if you look at prayer, because it engulfs a very large part of being Muslim, we would look at L in prayer, and it reminds me of a hadith of a man that came to the Prophet and he said, "Prophet, you teach me how to pray, but let's do this very fast." And the Prophet told this man that if you want to rush through it, better not pray at all. And what does this teach us? It teaches us to be intentional and cautious and calm when we come to God. Ablution, how you carry yourself in prayer, the things you utter. As far as Muslims are concerned, a prayer is not poetry or rehearsal. You have to be intentional. There are proper procedures to follow. However, when you happen to go out there and have a prayer, please remember that a very important part of it is going through it calmly, cautiously, intentionally. You don't rush. If you look at the other practices of worship, we have paying of zakat, fasting during the month of Ramadan, performing the Hajj for those that can afford it, and for those that cannot afford it, we have heard about the continuous Jummah prayers, 40 of them, that give you as much a standing as someone that has performed a Hajj. The next practice that we can emulate from the life of the Prophet would have to be calling people to the ways of Islam, the jihads that we fight. I am talking about the internal jihads that we have in our hearts, the struggle that you go through every day to tell right from wrong, to practice right from wrong. That is a war that really does not end when it comes to the soul, and we could learn from how the Prophet lived that part of his life. The last habit would have to be avoiding sinful acts. And when the Prophet and the Quran are talking to us about avoiding sinful acts, they are very much aware that we are human and capable of sinning and doing errors here and there every single day. And the most important thing is that they note, if God was to punish every soul with what we have done, no soul would be left on the face of the earth. This undertone means that Islam recognizes the humanity in us, the incapacity that we have not to do wrong every single day, every single time, whenever we have a chance. This is why Islam and the life of the Prophet as he lived it is an actual example of encouraging people to relentlessly seek for forgiveness from the most forgiving, the most merciful, the God that watches all over us, because given that we are incapable of avoiding sinful acts, by living a life of reminding ourselves that and seeking for forgiveness every day, perhaps we have a shot at living a life as good as the Prophet did. What we have covered today shows us that Islam understands that people are human, that we are going to make errors from here to here, that we are not going to pay attention to the Quran every time, that we are going to have shots and chances at being imperfect, but things like being able to perform our daily prayers every day, things like fasting during the month of Ramadan, giving charity, seeking for forgiveness unendingly, unstoppably, because we know that someone is listening out there, means that living a life while we emulate the practices of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ gives us a chance at living a morally upright life in the 21st century.